Welcome to a special PC3 media interview. I'm Jonny Klumpe, joined by Brody Kosiara, and our very special guest, Kristen Ledlow, is joining us for an interview today. Hello, Miss Ledlow. Thank you for joining
Hey,
us today.
you don't have to call me Miss. I mean, how much older am I than you guys? Enough to call me Miss? It's okay. You can
Yeah.
call me Kristen. But thank you. That was an awesome intro.
Kristen Ledlow, host of, has been around the NBA for a long time. You worked in many different facets for NBA TV with NBA on TNT. So you've been around the block in the NBA. Uh, Brody and I are both huge basketball fans, so we had some questions for you today. I think Brody's got our first question.
Mhm. I just want to know, like, how did you first break into that, like career and like broadcasting and all that?
Yeah, that's a great place to start because I jokingly say you guys can't be that much younger than me. I'm not that old, am I? But really and truly, in the last decade, the media landscape has changed so much. Even the reality of what we're doing right now would have been an impossibility for me when I was in school, when I was training to be a broadcaster. There would have been no way to reach out to a broadcaster that I looked up to or admired their work in some capacity and set up an interview with everybody on video that could be recorded and then used and multi-purposed all over the place. Like it just didn't exist. When I was in school, and this will again date me quite a bit, I put together a broadcast reel. I burned that file onto DVDs and I mailed those DVDs out to local news directors. That is quite obviously not the direction you guys are going to go as far as seeing success in the broadcast industry. But for me, it was. And I have always, I don't know where it came, it's kind of an irrational confidence. I have always had, for whatever reason, this confidence that I should walk into a room like I've already been there, like I belong there, right? And that's kind of what I did to land my first role. I went to a Florida State basketball game. Tallahassee is my hometown. I brought one of my reels on DVD with me just in case. And I kind of made my way down from my seat over to the sports director of our local news station and introduced myself and handed him one of my reels. And we had a great little conversation for about 3.5 minutes. And I was like, hey, keep in touch, and kind of went my own way and watched the basketball game and moved on. I went back to college for another semester, and it wasn't until the summer after I graduated that that sports director had given my reel to the news director at his station, and they were looking for an anchor of the noon news every day. So 30 minutes of local news in my hometown. And that was my very first job. And again, there's not a lot of that you all can relate to, in that you're not bringing a physical reel anywhere. You're not mailing these things out anymore. But the part that you can take from it is the confidence, the boldness to walk into a room like you've already been there and like you absolutely belong, to walk with purpose. And a lot of those doors that I kind of kicked open early on ended up being open doors that helped to define those first few years of my career.
Thank you. We also wanted to know, like, what has been the most challenging moment for your career and like on-air moments?
Yeah, goodness. You mentioned that I've been in a lot of roles, but with the same network for so long. It's always challenging to go from role to role when there are specific levels of preparation involved in each. So like you guys obviously prepared to talk to me today. You have questions in front of you. You know that we've got a half an hour to talk. You know that this is kind of podcast style and you want to show off your personalities, right? And you have questions prepared. But if you were doing sidelines for a game right now, you'd have a total of about 4.5 minutes to be part of the broadcast in its entirety. And the 20-second hits that you get really have to pack a punch. So I think one of the biggest just ongoing challenges is being able to prepare well for each role based on what it requires, because sidelines require something different than hosting in the studio, which requires something different than a podcast style interview. So that's an ongoing challenge and will obviously be for you guys as well. And then for me personally, the biggest challenge of the entirety of my career has been, it doesn't look like a regular job, if that makes sense. It's late and long nights, it's weekends, it's Christmas time spent away from my family to cover basketball games. And what an unbelievable gift for the season of life that I was in when I went all in on it. And quite obviously my life has changed. I've kind of grown up in front of an audience of people, going from 25 to 35 with lots and lots of people watching, meant that my life changed in a lot of ways. And so that became, I think, my biggest career challenge, was recognizing here are all of these hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people watching me every day cover this game that they love, that I want to be well prepared for and show up well, but knowing that I was giving up a lot as far as life goes, to pursue it well. And I think the only bit of advice I'd give in that way is that you can pursue it all with a yes. You can have it all, but not at the same time. And so that has become my biggest challenge here later in my career.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I want to ask you, you've kind of given us pieces of advice for both of us as aspiring broadcasters. What was like the biggest piece of advice you've ever received that helped you get to where you're at today?
You guys probably know who Rachel Nichols is, right? Iconic broadcaster, has covered basketball for a very long. I think it was my very first season that Rachel said to me, "No is a complete sentence. Just no." We have, I think, the idea that we got to say yes to everything, and if we can't say yes to everything, we have to have a really good reason why we can't say yes to everything, especially we're, as you mentioned, aspiring broadcasters and want to be on a big stage. You have this idea that yes is the only way forward, when in reality, no is a complete sentence. It doesn't require further explanation. And it gave me a lot of freedom, I think, to pursue what was best toward my end goal, rather than saying yes to a wide array of things and going for quantity over quality. Remembering that you can simply turn down an ask, you can simply turn down a role, you can simply say no as a complete sentence without explanation and save yourself for your end goal. So that to me was a not just career defining bit of advice, but life altering as well. And the other, as far as life goes, Ernie Johnson, who you guys I'm sure know and love, because who doesn't, well, now I feel like I can't narrow it down to one really good piece of advice that Ernie gave. A couple of things that Ernie has said to me that have been life altering. I think probably let's see, I'm going to give you two. One is be a fountain, not a drain. In any environment, walk in recognizing you are here to pour out, you are here to give, you are here to define your environment rather than suck from it. And the other is we must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives. And if anybody could kind of brush that off and make us wait on him, it's Ernie, right? But he was getting on the elevator at the same time as me, and I was like, "Look at you, 20 minutes early. Okay, I see you." And he just said back, "We must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives." And I was like, will you repeat that to me, please? Because that seems like something I need to track and to remember. And he went on to describe this ruthless elimination of hurry, which I could delve deeper into. He's given me books on the topic, but he was the first that I had watched walk it out. And in that, what he means is that he's prepared well. His day has been slow because he got up early, because he prepared early and often, because he got to the bus early before we were supposed to be. He never felt rushed. And in that, he became this non-anxious presence that was such an enormous gift to the entirety of our network, whether on camera or off it. And I think it comes across in his casting style also. He's just a non-anxious presence, which is a blessing to everybody everywhere that he goes. But it starts with that ruthless elimination of hurry.
Well, thank you so much. And I mean, it's so cool that you've gotten even to be in the same room as Ernie Johnson, let alone work with him and share
Well,
an elevator with them. But yeah, I mean, that's so
yeah,
cool.
that's his nickname too. Look at that. I didn't even mean to like tie all that in elevator.
Oh,
But it was quite literally an elevator in the Bay Area. So yes.
Um,
yeah,
how do you, I know you talked about like showing personality on air and all of that like earlier, but how do you balance that without like with being professional too?
That's such a good question. Because really early on, I have had at the time and still continue to had idolized Doris Burke. Like that's if you're a woman in basketball broadcasting, that's like that's that's your girl, right? And I think early on, I was trying almost to imitate everything that she did, even down to like her tone of voice, right? And one of my producers told me, "You're not going to be a better Doris Burke than Doris Burke is, but you can be the only Kristen Ledlow, right?" And so that helped shift my perspective from emulating a professional that I really admired to instead bringing professionalism to my own personality. A lot of it, I think, has to do with the outlet and with what's required of any given circumstance. I have covered devastating injuries on live games on TNT, but also covered uh, a race car plunge between Charles and Shaq that's on the same channel, right? So I think the amount of your own personal flavor that can be sprinkled into broadcast is really dictated by the broadcast, but I was freed up really early on by that producer who said that to me, as well as another producer when I was initially asked to start sidelines on TNT. I was hosting inside stuff on NBA TV at the time, and what he said before they put me on any game on TNT was, "Hey, we just like so you know, we just want you to be you, but on the sidelines. So like, still do this, what you do, who you are, how you act, except on the sidelines, right?" And so letting the broadcast dictate the level of professionalism is key. That's kind of just like reading a room, right? But also recognizing that you are the only you, and your unique voice, your unique perspective is what's going to set you apart in the industry is hugely important, no matter what the broadcast is.
Um, I don't know if you've probably seen the news about like TNT and their NBA on TNT. It's moving to ABC and ESPN. I don't know, like how does that make you feel?
Oh, that's a yeah. Um, it's it's bittersweet, right?
Mhm.
I spent 10 years of my life there, at least 6 days a week. And the sweetest memories that I have as an adult, up until having children, quite literally, have been there with those guys, with that team. So it bittersweet in that the very best memory, the memories I will hold closest and most dear, came from that stretch in that building with those guys, with that team. But also sweet in that, you know, I went on maternity leave with my now 1 year old, and it all, I don't know, it makes you feel like you're missing out on a lot, and instead it all kind of wrapped up to a really sweet end at the same time. So it felt in a lot of ways for me personally like just this beautiful wrap up to a chapter of my life that had been one of the sweetest yet.
and then I think we have a couple more questions. I know I have a couple to ask. I want to ask, what was your favorite interview you've ever done, or like your favorite person you've ever gotten to interview, or
Oh
like the
yeah,
coolest interview you've done?
yeah, totally. Uh, I've told this story before, but it's been a while, and maybe it wasn't on a public platform when I told it. Um, when Candace Parker and I were launching we had a podcast for one season only, but it ended up being just the wildest season all time with an unbelievable amount of things to cover. It was the season that got cut short by COVID and then brought back. And I mean, again, you always kind of, oh, this role is probably temporary, but you never think, oh, it's so temporary that maybe basketball will cease to exist all at once. And that's what happened that season. So Candace and I were preparing for the launch of our podcast, and we were like, okay, well, how do we want to do? What do we want to do? We have a unique perspective in that at the time we were the only two female personalities at TNT in kind of the personality-driven broadcasts, and we thought, hey, we have a unique perspective. Maybe it's just the two of us. Maybe we just talk, and people will like that. That'll be fine. If we're going to have guests, though, the guests need to, I think, be approaching the coverage of the game in the same way we are, which is like from this broader perspective. Like we're looking at this as like moms and women in a male-dominated space, and so we were like, who would be the right fit for that? And we both, I mean, we went back and forth on so many requests for the very first episode of our podcast, but we both at the same time landed on, we were like, oh, it's got to be Kobe Bryant. Like, there is just, he had recently retired. There was nobody that was, I think, as, there was no retirement that had been as impactful as his through the course of my time, covering the league. And he had immediately retired and then like gone on to like Oscar, he had gone on to do all these really cool things and such an advocate of women's basketball and just such a well-rounded, just approaching the perspective of the game from such a well-rounded perspective. So anyway, we landed on him and we sent the request, like our people sent the request to his people, right? Like the way that you're supposed to do it. And we just hadn't heard. And it was a few days from when we were supposed to record this. And Candace and I went up to New York. We covered a Knicks preseason game. And in the car on the way back to the hotel, Candace was like, look at my phone. And I was like, what? And it was Kobe who had sent her a message that was like, hey, you and Kristen did a great job on the broadcast, and I'd love to do the podcast. And we're losing it in the car. We're like, this is exactly what we wanted. And he was so unbelievably generous with his time. I mean, like, talked to us podcast style for such a long time, gave us so much gold as far as his mentality and his shift from basketball to life after retirement. And it was just so precious and impactful to me. And it would have been regardless. But it was like 90 days later that the accident that took him occurred. And so we lost him that season. And looking back at how generous he was with his time when it ended up being his most limited resource is something that now, years later, could just still bring me to tears because he invested so well in us. He was investing so well in the generation coming up behind him, both playing the game and covering it. That to me will be like, that will be a staple as far as interviews go. It doesn't get, a whole lot better than that.
Yeah, and I mean, he was an inspiration to so many and still is. His mentality was unbelievable, and it's so awesome that you got to interview him during that NBA season. But we have one final question, and when you got to host Inside Stuff with Grant Hill, we want to ask, how was that like? And also, do you remember your rap song from Inside Stuff?
What? I bet I can. Yeah, hang on. I'm trying to I remember I was wearing like an orange shirt and jeans, and Damian Lillard had done, it was like his 8-bar challenge or something, right? Am I on the right track?
I think so, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. It was like, I remember the end of it was, there's no I in team, but there is an M-E. Watch Inside Stuff
on NBA TV.
I do remember that.
Oh my gosh.
See that? Thank you.
Wow.
I don't remember the rest, I will admit. But yes, oh goodness. That's fun. Grant Hill, my goodness, I can't say enough good stuff about him. Like everyone thinks when they see him on TV and for the entirety of his life. I mean, he's been famous for like what 30 years. They think classy, kind, like kind of best of the best, right? And like he's somehow better than what people even think of him as a person. Like he is just the only reason I even asked for an audition with Inside Stuff is because I wanted to meet Grant Hill. It did not cross my mind that I would actually get the job and that 10 years later that audition would have like defined my career, right? And so I wanted to meet him, and the fact my just wanting to meet him turned into our being co-hosts, becoming such dear friends, becoming like this big brother that I never had. I mean, but he is just everything that anyone would hope that he is and more. And if you would have told me that like the day before I went in for that audition on NBA TV, that like one day Grant Hill would write a book and like have a whole page about me in it, then like there's no way. But that's what happened to my life. Like a decade later, he's just so pivotal. He is as amazing as you would hope him to be. Yes.
Thank you so much for giving us your time to be here. This was awesome and an awesome experience to interview you. We can't thank you enough.
Sorry, it was a little hectic. Obviously, I'm home during the mornings.
Yeah.
But I'm cheering you guys on. If you want to get in touch with me at any point, if you have any more questions for me, or if there's anything that I can help you with along the way, you just tell me, and I'm here. You guys are going to be awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.